afternoon, Silka. It really is an honor and a pleasure to have you join this podcast today. You have made such an impactful impression on me as an individual, and you've made an impactful mark on my career. You gave me my first opportunity right out of grad school with no experience in cybersecurity, and you just really showed me the ropes and helped me to grow in the profession. And just watching you build your company over the past 27 years, it is impressive and remarkable. So I'm just really honored and thrilled to have you join me this afternoon and just have a conversation about leadership, about your journey, and any insights you have for the next generation of leaders. So, Silka, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm flattered that you feel that way, that I had such a great impact in your life as a human being and also as a professional. So I'm glad to hear that.
One thing I'll start with, maybe I never told you. So, my parents know you actually, and my mom always says, "How's your boss doing? Your boss in Florida, how's she doing?" And they always say, "No, say hello to her whenever you speak with her." We're always praying for her because she's just been an amazing blessing to your life. So, I just wanted to share that my family really knows the impact you've made. And it's not just about the impact you've made in my life. I think it's also the impact you've made in the lives of every individual that your paths have crossed, right? From a career perspective, from working with you directly. It's just the fact that you're such an amazing human being, right? And that's what I'd really like to touch on a little bit today to learn about how did this all come together. So you've had the company ERM Protect. You started about 27 years ago. You've built that.
28. 28.
28. Wow. See, I even missed that 28 years
Yeah, it was
ago.
the anniversary was in February, so it's 28. Yeah.
Wow.
But you were close.
Amazing. Amazing. 28 years. You built that company from scratch. So maybe we can just start by you just sharing how did that all start? What inspired you to start ERM Protect, and what has the journey been like?
Well, what motivated me to start the company is that, like many professionals, I went to college and did a couple of degrees and worked for years, mostly in consulting in Price Waterhouse for like 9 years. I also spent between those 9 years some time as a CISO of a multinational. I went there for a few years, and the bureaucracy of corporate America was a little bit too much for me. I went back to PwC again, but I realized I just wanted to have a different kind of life. You see, Jumi, I was raised in a farm. It was surrounded by nature, and there was everything was very wholesome. And when you dive into corporate America that way, it's a little bit shocking, especially after a few years and you see how everything works. So I wanted to have a different kind of lifestyle. And that was the main motivator of trying to do something. My family and my friends and my coworkers told me I was making a huge mistake. And I told them, I don't know if I'm making a mistake, but I'm not happy. And I want to try something else to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to another job, a regular job. And that's what motivated me to do this. And I have no formal training as an entrepreneur or anything of that nature. So it was trial and error. A lot of the things that I did, I had to take like $42,000 I had in my 401k. That was the only capital I had. So my only savings were removed, and that's how I started the business. And I think God has been on my side, protecting me from massive damage, because it has been a long time. It has been painful. It has been rewarding. It has been the ride of my life. My family tells me, and my loved ones tell me, that it changed me as a person in some good ways and in some bad ways, because running a business is stressful and very demanding. There's a big responsibility. But I don't regret it at all. Now I look back, I'm much older, and I feel like, wow, I don't even know how I did it. I think one thing that helped me was to me that I'm a very determined person, and I'm very hopeful, and I work really hard I try to surround myself with good people and motivate them to see the journey and ride the journey with me, at least for a little bit. And I think that helped me to do this. And the fact that I started with cyber when it was not very well known, not like today that is everywhere. But when I started, was people would look at me like an alien, especially a woman, because back then there were not many women in this career, and many that were not starting businesses from scratch to think that they could compete with big companies and consulting firms. My intention was not to compete with them. My intention was to be happy, make a good living, give a good service, and learn along the way. And that was my objective.
Thank you for sharing that journey because I know that it takes a lot of grit to run a business. So I can't imagine the challenges you ran into and just the ups, the downs that came about throughout the last 28 years. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the core values that have framed your leadership principles, and were there individuals that informed or influenced your approach to leadership as a young individual and also growing into the practitioner and business owner that you've become?
I think the core values are the core values that my mother instilled in me and my siblings of high integrity, honesty, hard work, dedication, respect for other human beings, caring for other human beings, servicing others. I think those things were like instrumental. They're instrumental in the way I conduct my life because I saw an example in my mother and I follow that example. And I think people that know me well said big part of maybe your success is your inherent nature of how you behave, because that foundation help you to do the right thing in a natural way. So it just came from my upbringing, my family. I was raised in a very Catholic family in a farm, very, very wholesome. I went to Catholic schools and Catholic university, and she would teach catechism to children and elderly people. And we went to the church every week, and I was involved in those things. And we will have people in the house that were like very poor, even with no shoes, sitting next to us eating. So for us, I saw that example of helping and serving others and teaching others and feeding them or whatever, and treating everybody with a lot of respect and value what you have and sharing what you have with others. I think that was what happened, is that I just followed the path that I saw in my household with my mother and my father.
And Silka, I can attest to that, right? Working with you, that I think about way back then where there were ups and downs in the business, and you did show a lot of empathy to the people that were working for you. The people that worked for you were not treated as resources or just a number. They were people. And you cared for the people that worked for you to the extent that there are times where you wouldn't even get a paycheck just to make sure that the people that worked for you got paid. Also, I saw a lot of times where you gave people opportunities that, like myself as well, that didn't really have any experience, but you were able to bring people in, groom them, help them to be successful individuals. You always displayed empathy and care. So, my question for you is, how have you been able to balance empathy with accountability and excellence while running a business? Because I think that you did a really good job at that, where you gave people a lot of chances and graces, but how do you manage those to ensure that while you care for people and show empathy and you want to help them, you're also able to ensure that they're accountable and deliver the level of excellence that you expect for your business?
I don't know exactly, Jumi. I go back to my childhood and what my parents demanded from me to do my job at home and to do my job in school and to be responsible and at the same time enjoy life and to share with others. So the way I have approached the business is I knew I didn't want to have the same culture that I saw in big organizations. I wanted to have something that was more family oriented, something that was more caring, something where we have more flexibility at the workplace, but at the same time that we are adults and we have responsibilities and we have expectations, and that everybody has to play their part. And I don't have to be looking at you. You know, I have employees like Akash today still in India, and I don't see Akash. I know Akash is going to do what he needs to do. And we have people here that the lady that came to help me here, she's a newbie here. She works in marketing, an exceptional lady. And she wants to go home and work for home from New Jersey in the next 2 weeks. Well, she's going to go there because, you know, that makes her happy. And I know Anna's going to do her work. Why should I restrict Anna from doing that? She can work and she can still spend time with them. And I think people, once they start seeing that kind of behavior, that yeah, something is expected of you and they expect something from me also. Everybody is an adult and we need to be responsible. They need to have their freedom and they need to be empowered to do what they need to do with me or without me. You understand? So I think people want to feel part of something and understand the goals and what their part is, but they don't want to be micromanaged. They don't want to feel entrapped in a job. They want to have freedom. They want to be creative. They want to raise their voice. They want to be heard. They want to contribute. And then when you allow that, then people, depending on the capabilities that the individual has, intellectually, personality-wise, how driven they are, some people will excel exceptionally, some people less. So they go at their own level. So, and then the team behaves better. And a team that is happy is a happy place. It's like a family. You understand?
I agree with you because this brings back lots of memories, right? Because I think that you do a great job building trusting teams, right? Because in that environment where there's psychological safety, the teams are given responsibilities and they know that they are accountable to deliver those outcomes that you said, like you said, the goals, right? And I think that trust also helps them to do their best and it brings out the creative genius in the teams. Because I remember working with you right out of grad school. You gave me my first client, and you're like, Jimmy, you can do this. And of course, because Silka said I can do it, I had that confidence and I gave it my very best. So, being in an environment where there's psychological safety, where there's trust, you know that you have the support of your leaders and your team, and the teams and the organization definitely thrives because people know that the leaders have their back. So, Silk, I really commend you for continuing to build that type of environment in your organization.
The other thing is you try to hire people that have to have similar core values than you, and they need to understand the culture of the company and what you're trying to accomplish. You know, and if you're clear with them and you help them, and then you hire people not only with the core values, but we try to hire people that are highly intelligent, are highly educated, and they're driven, and that they have passion for what we do, cyber. Then the team will so cross-train each other on different things, and then the team can excel more. To that point, Jumi, they have asked me, the new generation, we want you to teach us how to sell. So I am trying, because this is not something that no one taught me. I did it out of survival because I needed to sell so that we can make a living. So I say, yeah, why not? Let's start. So for 6 or 7 months, I have weekly meetings with them, and then I tell them what to do. They set goals, and I will go through what they're doing weekly, and I hammer to them, tell me what you did, tell me what worked, what doesn't work. Are you frustrated? Why are you frustrated? And then I get them feedback, and I say, you get out of life what you put into life. And it's the same thing with sales, or with your job, or your husband, or your kids, or your coworkers. If you want to sell, you have to spend time selling. You have to take some time during the day and decide what are the tasks you're going to do to sell. And that week, you need to plan ahead. Work backwards from your goal, and then you plan ahead backwards to see how I'm going to accomplish that, because every day you have to do something that will lead you to a sale. Phone calls, emails, you send something to a client, you need to do something, or you schedule a speaking engagement, or write an article and publish the article. You need to go to a networking event. You need to plan things. It's like every day, if you kiss your kids every day and you spend time with them, quality time, and hug them, and they know that you care for them, your relationship with them over time is going to be much better than if you ignore them. I think that process, that you open yourself and help others, and even when they can see your weaknesses, many of them are way more brilliant than I am, okay? But I think when you share all these things with them, and you're open and you're receptive and you try to help them, even tell them when they're wrong so they can see it, I think those things take you a long way.
So, okay, I think you hit on a couple of things that are very important, right? Because you're able to pour into the next generation and they see you as someone that they can approach to learn from. Even though you may not have a structured framework, but you have proven experience that has delivered and they see that and they want to glean from your wealth of wisdom and you're able to at least share that with them without gatekeeping in a sense. So that definitely would eventually yield results over time as they continue to practice all the things that you're sharing with them from your experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's already coming to bring us some positive results. And I think it's going to be compounded over time as they get more confident in their skills and more disciplined. Because I tell them, this did not happen because I wish this to happen. This is not a miracle what happened here. I had to earn this with a lot of work and sacrifice and suffering, and this is not for everybody. This is it's not for everybody. Not many people are made to be entrepreneurs and start something with this high level of risk. If you want to, you can do it too.
That's spot on. So, would you say that your leadership style has evolved over time as you've gained more experience and all of that? Has it evolved in terms of how you've engaged
Yeah,
with
it has
Mhm.
evolved. There's some core things that are the same. It had to evolve because as we grow and we have more and more people, we have many more clients. We serve 40 different industries. We have clients that are global clients, very complex client situations that we handle, and we increase the number of services and the level of risk in some of the services. The complexity of the business have grown, and it has forced me to step back and be like the orchestra, director. And then you have people marketing, you have forensics, you have consultants, you have AI, you have training, you have accounting, you have legal, all these different things, and there's no way I can be everywhere. So my role is more of the CEO and the president. I oversee what they're doing, and I guide, and I look for accountability and direction, and we set some goals annually, and we try to go and to get those targets. And if we don't get it, so we measure why we're not getting it, and we don't wait till the end of the year. We're measuring that monthly and weekly. Okay, so I'm more on the top, directing and checking and making sure the whole organization is doing their little pieces, and also managing high level and in the sales part of business development and a lot of public speaking and things like that. But so my role has evolved because I'm not doing field work in years.
Yeah.
Okay, unless there's a massive problem with a client that I need to dive in with them. But thank God we never have something so tremendous. So I think, yeah, it has evolved over the years because the business demanded that I needed to grow. Yeah.
That's very helpful because I know that the business also evolves because in your space, from a consulting perspective, there's been rapid change in
Yeah.
technology and regulations. So, how do you lead in times of rapid change, in terms of uncertainty? How do you ensure that you're able to set clarity for the direction that the firm has to take to adapt to those changes?
One thing I learned very early on is that, especially in technology, that what you have today will not be here tomorrow. and then what you have tomorrow will not be there in the future. It keeps evolving. So you need to stay tuned with what is happening with the evolution of technology and cyber and regulations. What are the new national laws, the state laws? What are the new standards? What are the new technologies? What is happening? And we go and get trainings. So we have instituted here a way of lunch and learn or training so that we train each other. If we send a demo, for example, to a super expensive course on advanced techniques of pen testing, so I send one, and then I bring that one, and that one has to summarize that stuff and teach the other ones. And not only that, when they're doing the work, they start teaching the things to the other ones so that they can cross-train each other. But to do that, you need to have discipline, and you also need to have money dedicated for that training and that learning and that timing. So now we're big on AI. We go on a gradual level. Every month we have trainings of more stuff on AI, more stuff on AI, more stuff on AI. So you can have layers of learning for everybody. So what the key thing is, even if you're small or you have in your department, is to understand and have your pulse on what is happening in terms of technology changes, read things, be aware of what's going on. Also, the clients start telling you things. So research, and then start learning. You can never stop learning. And then you need to share that learning. And then some people are going to be better at some subject and they can become subject matter experts. They need to teach the other ones. And maybe the other ones are never going to be to the level of that high level person, that AI person, or the high pen tester, or the high forensic investigator, but they can share some of that knowledge with the other ones. The same thing with regulations and things of that nature. I live with a lawyer. So that lawyer researched for me all the laws that are current happening in the federal space or the statewide that are like in the new trends. And so definitely I live in Florida. So I check everything is happening in Florida in the legislature. So the key thing is to, even if you have a small group, you can still get ahead if you're always reading and learning and sharing that with others. But you need to make that a priority. You always have to be having a pulse of what is happening with new laws, with regulations, with standards, what is happening in the industries, what is happening in technology, and you need to adapt. You need to
Right.
adapt.
That's very true, right? Adaptation is key. So, as your teams are adapting to the changing landscape and trying to learn and grow and build new capabilities, I know that it takes a while for some of those learnings to mature, and there may be an occasion where people make mistakes. So how do you handle mistakes when those occur within the team, within the group? How do you ensure that when mistakes happen, they're handled in a way that creates an environment where the teams are still able to learn from them and grow through them?
Well, we try to minimize mistakes that are huge. And the only way we can minimize that is that you need to have people that are very, 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 very experienced involved from the beginning to the end and monitor what is happening. Because when you have inexperienced people in a team, they might not have all the know-how, and you need to have quality assurance processes. If you're going to delegate to someone, you need to at least give them some foundation and some guidelines, and then you need to make sure that they're going in the right direction and supervise them and check the quality and have an open door policy that they can feel okay asking you, I'm totally lost, I don't understand, explain it to me again because I don't know how to do this. And so I think that process of delegation, but also proper guidance before, during, and after, and QA is absolutely necessary to avoid massive problems.
Right.
But then you still might have problems. So when you have those problems, then you need to sit down with the team and you need to identify what happened and get the stories from every source. And you need to get to the truth, and no one can lie. We need to find the truth and we need to own it. If we screw up something, we screw up something. And if we need them to call the client and just own it and do whatever we need to do, sometimes we have it given an entire job for free or something because we screw up something, not something massive that you just need to You just don't start attacking people or accusing people. You just need to sit down with everybody and figure out what happened. And everybody has to be as candid as possible. Some people try to protect themselves, but you try to see what is going on. And then you try to see, okay, what is the best way of dealing with this? Doing the right thing, doing
Yeah.
the right thing.
That's very important, right? Because I think just being able to really get to the root of what happened and solving that problem, owning it as a team and not necessarily pointing the fingers, but just trying to figure out how do we get out of this or solve or address the mistake, right? Just makes it easier for people to feel comfortable to bring issues up whenever they occur, or even ask for help when they're
Yeah.
struggling. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that what happens sometimes in organizations, which I saw that in when I worked for years in large organizations, is sometimes people are afraid. And then some people are willing to throw someone under the bus because they're afraid that they're going to be fired or they will look bad. It's very hard for me to fire someone. And most of the time, if we have to fire someone, it's because of unethical behavior for lies. Usually that's why we bring interns first, even with masters, because even with masters, they some people can do things and some people cannot do things, or some people don't have the critical thinking. So the person might not have what it takes to do a job, and I cannot keep that person. Or if someone has done something unethical to be fired. But in most of the time, if the person is competent and something, or a team is competent and something happened, you just try to find out what happened, what was the problem, and you try to fix it as a team. But you need to own it. Everybody needs to own their part, and just let's see what's the best approach to fix it
Right.
or the mess we have. You
Right.
know what I mean?
That's true, Silka.
Okay.
So I know that building a company is a lot of work and it takes everything out of you to just make it successful. And also, the space you're in, the cybersecurity space, is also ever changing, complex. So, what are some of the personal habits that you have that you ensure that you stay with to make sure that you remain grounded and centered and, like you said, enjoy life?
I think when I was very young, when you were here, I was much younger. I was a complete workaholic, even Saturdays and Sundays. And now I'm a little bit older. And I just realized that, life has a beginning and life has an end. I'm very, very clear about that. I'm also very clear that money is not everything, status is not everything, power is not everything. The most important thing is the people you love and the life you have every day. So I try to make sure that yes, I work, I'm productive, I help my employees, my clients, I help myself, that I'm profitable, that we're doing great. But I just realized that you need to have to stop, and you need to make sure that you're taking care of your own person and the people around you that you care, because your job and all these things that we attach so close to material things are not the most important things. And I keep that really clear. Even now that I'm almost at the end of my career, life is much more than your job, much more. I think we lose sight of that. I did too.
No, but that's wisdom right there, right? And it takes sometimes just, experience to get you to the point where you just realize what really matters at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Silka, next question for you. How do you want people to feel after working with you? And what would you hope your leadership legacy would be?
I created this business and I enjoy it very much. I with the purpose of serving others. I am passionate about cybersecurity, and cybersecurity by itself is a big social problem that keeps growing and growing with different layers of technology. Every day is more complex and more complex and more complex. For me, just like maybe a doctor, not every doctor, but many doctors that have vocation, or a nurse, they want to help their patient. Not all of them, right? But some. But here, I do really mean that we want to help our clients with, the right expertise, being honest with them, be reasonable in pricing, and have a partnership and transparency. And the same thing with employees so that they can be happy. Because at the end of the day, with that approach, everybody's happier. Okay. So my legacy is just continue doing what I've been doing, even if I sell the business and I sit in boards. I am passionate about cyber and I want to contribute with the little bit I can to help fight this problem socially for companies and for individuals, for countries. I think it's a big problem. So that's part of what I would like my legacy to be. And the second thing is anything that I can do for another human being that is going to help them in the future is something that is meaningful, or like you feel like I impact your life so intensely. And I know I have helped many other people with their careers, and that is very gratifying, and it's something that the more I can do of that, the better, because I'm not going to take with me any material things the day I die.
That is powerful, Silka. So, one last question. What advice do you have for the next generation of leaders?
The world that I live and that I'm going to probably see as I age with AI and quantum computing and everything else that comes after that we don't even know now, it's going to be so different. Society is going to change. It has changed so much since I was a child till now. So I don't know your kids and the kids of your kids, what kind of life they will have. And so that will affect how jobs are, how teams are, how society is, and how they interact. I just think at the core, you need to keep those values of integrity and honesty and all these things that I'm telling you: service, honesty, dedication, hard work. Do something that means something, not just money, not just power, not just recognition. You do something for the deep meaning that it has for others, and that give you satisfaction, not necessarily in material things, but inside you. I think that will go a long way in any generation. The other thing, leaders of the future just have a sense of humanity. Treat people the way you would like to be treated and help them. It's just like reciprocity. The more you give, the more you get. Okay?
Thank you so much, Silka. Thank you so much for this inspiring discussion and just your wealth of wisdom and for making time to have this conversation with me today.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time. This has been amazing. You are an amazing leader, an amazing person. You've made such an impact and you continue to do so. Thank you, Silka. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.